Welcome everybody to the official first briefing of the British Open Paramotor Championships 2023. It is fantastic, first of all, to see so many of you in the room. We have 40 of you, I believe, at the moment from my list in the room, and 70 pilots registered for this championship. That's a record in Britain. I don't know about other countries, certainly. We have all sorts of other records this year that I will talk about at some point. But also we have a record number of new faces, and a huge part of the number that we're looking at are new to paramotor competitions, and that is just so exciting for all of us, I think, to have so many new faces pushing their way in, learning, recognizing it for what we've always felt that it should be, is a chance to develop your pilot skills and have fun, and hopefully pushing up to the more experienced people in the room next year into podiums as you learn, and boosting British and other national teams. And I would also like to specifically welcome all of our international competitors. We have a considerable German contingent, which is fantastic. We have a Belgian contingent. We have a, let me pull up my list.
Italian.
We have, I think, a South African, very small contingent. We have a contingent from the Netherlands. We have I mentioned everybody? Ireland. Do we have any of the Irish pilots in here this evening?
Italy.
Italy, we have Italians, we have considerable Italians, and we have Japan as well. I haven't seen Rioja's name in the meeting.
I think Spain also.
Spain.
Sorry?
Spain,
we have Spain, absolutely. So this is fantastic. We are delighted at such an international contingent, and I can also announce that we are co-hosting, due to the number of pilots, the concurrently running German National Paramotor Championship as part of this event. So welcome to the Germans. It's okay, when all the British boys beat you in the Open Championship, you'll still be competing against each other in your national championship, yeah? Or not?
Challenge accepted.
I might be eating those words, but it's really exciting, and you are very, very welcome. I will introduce myself. You all know me, I hope. Barney Townsend. Those that don't know me so well, I have been involved for quite a long time in British paramotor competitions, since starting flying for the team in about 2008-9. Through to 2016 Worlds, and then I decided to step back and do some directing, and have been building this format of championship ever since. And I'm really delighted at the turnout this year, because I always knew it was going to be a long game. It was a 5-year-ish plan to build the way I wanted competitions to run, and the payoff is the turnout and the registration list. So thank you. I will also introduce a few other key people at this point. Andy Phillips, I can see you there as my co-director, with Jen next to him as well, who's one of the key marshals. Hi Jen. Andy is co-director, co-scorer, also comes with a fair amount of experience. You want to introduce yourself, Andy?
Yeah, sure. I know a lot. It's great to see some old faces there. Looking forward to catching up with everyone. So yeah, I'm basically Barney's right-hand man throughout, and as I'm sure he'll say later, if you have problems, do try and find me first. I'm sort of his last line of defence, so that he can get on with all his clever stuff. But really looking forward to seeing you all. It's going to be a great comp.
Yeah, so Andy will be a kind of sacrificial anode in some cases for me. I'll have a lot of decisions to make, and you have a chain of command which will go up actually before you get to Andy, first and foremost, probably with when you're on the deck, will be the team of marshals around you, but then through them to the chief marshals. So do we have Simon and Lynn in the room?
Hello.
Hello, can I see you? We've got cameras on.
Hi.
Hello.
I've got
Hello
three pages worth of things. Hi guys, I've got Simon.
Hello there.
Hi.
Hello there.
So Simon and Lynn have, well, I'll let you introduce yourselves after this, but to introduce very briefly, have been marshalling and building a wonderful team of marshals for the last few years. So they really know what they're doing. They have great plans. They run a tight ship and a happy ship. Do you want to say anything, Simon, Lynn?
Go on, Lynn. You introduce. You there? You're on mute.
We're really looking forward to this year and hope that this year will be as successful as last year. I know we're much bigger, but I think that we're going to do a good job.
Thank you. So I think you guys, they know an awful lot about what they're doing. They will be your sort of day-to-day, minute-to-minute directors of where to stand, where to put your kit, last-minute doubts. If there's an issue that is more strategic about task planning or scoring, that sort of thing, you kick it up the chain, or they will kick it up the chain to first Andy and then eventually me if necessary. We also have Andy Shaw in the room. Hi, Andy. Andy is also well known, comes with a very long history of aviation and aviation competition and lots of medals and trophies in aviation competition, but is leading the Discovery Championship, or the Discovery Class Challenge, as we have renamed things, which I'll talk about a bit in a moment. Andy, do you want to say a couple of words? You're muted, Andy.
Can you hear me now?
We lost you again. You've muted yourself again. We had a big echo, so if you're having trouble, come back in a moment. I'll carry on for Andy.
Can you hear me now?
We can, but it's still getting big echo. I'm going to mute you for the moment, Andy. I'll do the intro. Andy is CFI of Green Dragons Flying School, so he is the kind of authority on primarily safety for the Discovery Challenge people. I will still be directing that in terms of competition and what you fly, and I'll explain a bit today about the differences between the two setups. But Andy will be on the deck, on the field, monitoring who's doing what and when, keeping an eye on things, and making sure you're all safe, making sure you're all happy, making sure you're all confident about what it is that you're doing, where you're going, that sort of thing.
1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3. That's much better, Andy.
I'm so sorry. My internet isn't that great, but thanks very much, Barney, for the intro there. It's amazing to see everybody. My hand is up, my heart is out there. If I can help all these new pilots just get another bit stage further in their flying career, I think that's what it's all about. Barney leads an amazing team, and the British team that's all involved, it's just, I'm in awe of it all. I love it. And I guess the other string to my bow is I'm your sponsorship officer. So I am commercially involved in the sport. I declare that interest now and forevermore, because I'm not going anywhere else. I love it. And it's great to help bring the commercial guys on board and the sponsors. So I'm looking forward to helping people wherever we can.
Yeah, it should be said that Andy is primarily the reason that your entry fees are not running somewhere in the order of £200 to £250. The amount of money he has, the work he has done to engage our sponsors, who are the next people I will come to introducing in a moment, but when I finish all the personal introductions. So thank you, Andy. We also have not directly involved in on the deck day-to-day competition organisation once the events start, but have been hugely instrumental and massively part of all the hard work so far. Our other committee members. So do we have Lee hiding around somewhere? The camera on.
Hello guys, you all right?
Hello mate. Rick Womersley, training officer. He will be putting out feelers to recruit feelers for building the future squad whilst we're there. Do you want to say anything, Rick?
No, I'm just really excited for a competition with so many pilots again. It's going to be excellent.
And so Rick will also be fighting to take back the trophy that he had to pass over last year to Mr. Daniel Jones, who is our treasurer. Dan in the room.
Good evening, folks. Lovely to see you all here.
Dan has done sterling work pulling together all our finances this year. It's gone up a notch, as we can see, with a competition this size. Aside from lots of also the support that we get across graphics, and you're all very familiar with his promotional activities in terms of media, everything else. So thank you very much, guys. On the deck, during the week, obviously Dan and Rick will be focused on flying their competitions, but that doesn't mean to say that you can't go and read about stuff. Do we have Norman in the room? I don't believe we do. Norman McNeil. Many of you will know Norman. He's not here right now. He's our Chief Safety Officer. He is a very long lasting character in British Paramotor competitions, seen it all, and he has a strong eye for anything that's unsafe, and he will pull you up on it. He has the right, if he feels it appropriate, to prevent you from taking off if he sees that there's a piece of equipment that he is not confident in. We will be doing scrutineering on the first Wednesday when you arrive before the first briefing, but that can happen at any point. I'm sure it won't happen. It hasn't in the history of my competitions happened that we have had to refuse takeoff for a pilot, because you're all very good at checking your kit, bringing safe kit. But the warning is there that we have that power and we retain that right to prevent you if we feel that there's a safety issue. The final intro I will make, who are not in the room this evening, but the owners of our site and our hosts, the NAFI Cafe, who are the cafe on the RAF History Museum, is run primarily by a lady called Janine Groombridge and a team of directors with her. Simon, Chief Marshal, volunteers there, and Lynn. So they're volunteers at the museum. They know them quite well. They've been our entry to this site. But you will certainly see Janine around, and I encourage you to go and patronise the cafe with your custom and bring some money into them so that they get a little bit more back for all the work and the hosting they've given us for relatively very little money for such a site. There is also the airfield. So we're at Manston Airfield. The representative that we deal with is a guy called Gary Blake from a company called RSM, who are the owners of Manston, and they are currently working to a deadline in 2025 when it's going to start being recommissioned and rebuilt as a freight airport. Between now and then, they are actively keen to support community projects, aviation projects, flying projects, engineering projects, and they've been very welcoming of us, but they are also obviously aware of any damage that we might do to their current case for business development. And there is a strong emphasis on pilot behaviour and good behaviour, not to piss off their neighbours or do anything more that could jeopardise that. So that's my final point. There is that we are guests on a site that has a number of businesses on it, and also longer term business interests, and any behaviour either on the ground or aerially that could jeopardise that and jeopardise our relationship with them and our ability to go back there in 2024 will be frowned upon quite considerably, and in worst case punished if it's task-wise or otherwise. Enough said. This is not a telling off. This is a welcome and a happy day. I'll leave it there, yeah? I will also thank specifically our sponsors, because they have been fantastic in support, and the money they bring in has made a considerable difference to the amount of money that you guys pay on your entry fees. That has translated in no small part, I'm sure, to how many of you we have in the room, and particularly all the new pilots. So Viterazzi Paramotors as our lead sponsor, then Green Dragons Air Sports, Parajet Paramotors, Northern Skies Paramotors, Mini Plane UK Paramotors, Mini Moat Microlight Paramotors, Ozone Power, Fly Spain, Stargate MOT Centre, the Jolly Farmer Pub, Thermal Chasers, You Fly for Fun Paramotor School, Polar Helicopters, Skybound Aviation, Bulldog Paramotors, Dudek UK, Paramotor Party Boys, Blue Sky Blue Flight Suits, and Retractor Trike. Thank you very much to all of you. Some of you I know are in this room, and we are extremely grateful for your support. Okay, moving on. By the way, anyone has questions, please feel free to raise a hand, pause me. This is not meant to be a non-stop lecture from me. Chip in. There is no such thing as a stupid question in a briefing like this, particularly because so many of you are new to it. If you're thinking it, somebody else was probably thinking it too, and please do ask. I'd much rather you asked. It's new that we've done this. It's the first time we've ever done an online briefing. We're post-COVID. We've all learned to do stuff online. We can record this for those that can't be there. It's another touch point. It means we can streamline the briefing on the first night towards more local site-specific issues, which will make more sense when you've been there on the deck and sort of seen the layout. So some of the specific marshalling, how you're going to lay out your wings and take off in particular directions, that sort of thing, I will do on the first night briefing. Tonight is generally to cover more general competition safety issues, the rule book, flight safety, aerial protocol, airfield protocol, and a sort of overview of the tasks, some of which I did in the previous sort of training seminar, and I'll pick up a bit more on that later on if we have time. David, you have a question?
Hi, Barney. Yeah, sorry I joined a bit late, but yeah, just a quick one. On wings, should the weather turn on us prior to the event, and it looks like it's going to be a windy event, are we okay to change the wings that we've pre-selected, before we actually start any events? Yeah.
Absolutely.
See you nodding. So yeah.
We have what you've registered is to say we've got the baseline database, and we don't take it all on the day if nothing changes. But if you come on the day and say I want to fly something different, just we'll ask you to fill out a form when you register, and we can update our records then. What we ask is that you stay with the same wing then for the rest of the competition, unless in the event that you have a nightmare or your wing is laid out to take off and somebody piles in and their prop chops it to pieces, and the only spare one you've got is a different wing. We will allow that, but with a decision that we would make as a committee of some sort as to whether that gave you any advantage in some way, in which case we would impose some kind of penalty. If it was a much faster wing, we'd have to put some sort of score penalty on speed or whatever it might be, but it's an individual judgment we'd have to make. Okay. So yeah, I mean, on that point about no such thing as a stupid question, we lay a huge emphasis on training. I'm a professional teacher by career. I was very lucky to learn so much of what I learned about paramotoring that led me to being British champion through the kindness and generosity of people at competitions and through competitions. And my philosophy has always been to perpetuate that and bring more back. So the Discovery Challenge is very much about bringing people into it, learning under a less pressurized system. And I do encourage you all to not really see the Discovery pilots, not to get too caught up in the competition aspect of it. Go out, have fun, ask questions, work together as a team. We will be putting on as many briefings and seminars and map working sessions as people want, and we can provide during the event to make sure that when you go out, you're confident in what you're going to fly and how you're going to fly it. The Open Championship is a different class. And I guess this is my point on my agenda about explaining the differences. In the past, it's been a little bit more diluted because we've had club class, Discovery class, Open class. We've decided to combine club class into Discovery, but we are scaling back Discovery to something that is much closer to club. The idea is it's your first time in competition. You learn from it once, you learn if competition is from you, you pick up the skills that you need to go away and train for. And if you like competition and you want to come back, you come back the next year and you enter an Open Championship and you'll have a bigger map, a bigger area, a bigger challenge. But in Discovery Challenge this year, we will give you all the help that you need and ask for. So we have, I've talked about Discovery Challenge, classes within that, and then versus British Open Paramotor Championship challenge class. Both of them, we now have foot launch and trike classes. So there are 4 classes of competitor altogether. PF1 foot launch, PF1D foot launch Discovery, PL1 Open Championship trike, PL1D Discovery trike. I'm very disappointed that they are exclusively male. We had one female who did register and has since had to pull herself out for other reasons. There's a huge push for you guys to all go out next year and recruit every female pilot that you can bring in. Let's get a female class as well. It would be very nice. Bear that in mind. I will also say then that we have several parallel scoring systems for each of those classes. The British Open Paramotor Championships, which are open to anyone, pilots from all nationalities. The British National Paramotor Championships, which are open only to British pilots, and from which the winner of that will be crowned British National Paramotor Champion. And then we have the German National Paramotor Championships, open only to the German pilots in the room, and the winner of that will be crowned the German National Paramotor Championship. National Paramotor Champion, excuse me. We have for the first time a valid trike class in solo trike. Technically at the moment the Discovery trike class is not valid. It only has 2 pilots in it. We will still score you, and we will still enable you to have all the fun of the competition, but we need 4 pilots technically to make a valid podium of 3.
Am I breaking the trike class when I move to foot launch?
Who said that? Sorry, Daniel. You moving to foot
you
launch?
registered as trike.
No, that's fine. You're not.
Okay, good.
We have at the moment 7 pilots in solo trike Open Championship class, which is fantastic. Okay, so I've talked. Sorry.
Okay, I was just going to say you can still win overall though from either class. Though, is that right?
Yeah, a British pilot could still win the British Open Championship. As a Brit, I hope that we do. No offence, Germans. But it has been known in the past to have that top spot held by either a German or a Frenchman.
And it won't be limited to the particular class that you're in.
No. There is a separate, if you're a trike class, there is a separate British National Trike Champion and British Open Trike Champion. Because we do now have 5 British pilots in the solo trike. Yeah, up for grabs, and fantastically so, because that's a real incentive to more trike pilots to come in next year and have a crack at it. Okay, so I've covered. I'm going to go through now some general specific site issues, overview of the site, overview of the area, which will include sort of airfield protocol. And some general task briefing. As I've said, I'm not going to cover marshal specific things other than to point out the fact that those are your chief marshals and a few key things about flags. We'll leave the kind of much more site specific stuff and task timing specific stuff to the first briefing when I have a better idea of the weather. So on the first night, that task briefing will be 9 p.m. on Wednesday evening. And at that one, I will give you the best overview that I can on how I plan to lay out the week in terms of open navigation flying, windows for economy flying of various sorts, and windows for precision navigation, so that you can apply a little bit more strategy. And at that one, I will give you the full detail of the maps with the turn points and the precision routes and everything else. What I will show you tonight are representative examples, but on the Kent map, so they're very close to what you can expect. So site specific, let me pull up Google Earth and give you an idea of where we are. Can we all see this?
Yes.
This is Manston Airport. Broadly speaking, our flying area is that. It's the whole of Kent, plus a bit more. It's a very big space. It's unusual in the sense that because of the position of our airfield, we are only going south and west, and we're in the top right-hand corner of it. In the past, we've had a slightly big area because we've been in the middle and we've been able to go in both directions. But realistically, in the flight times we've got, you're not going to get further west and make it back again. So that's the area that we're talking about. There are very little impositions in terms of airspace. That I will talk about on the main map. It's a one we have imposed, as are these gliding clubs. There's a few microlight fields around, but I'll come back to them when I talk about the maps themselves. But easier to show you the local site on Google Earth. So we'll stick with this for now. The other point I need to make, actually, in terms of championships that are happening, is that we share the site with the Human Powered Aircraft Championships, the Icarus Cup, which is also BHPA. They will be actually arriving on the Saturday, this Saturday morning. They run for a week because their weather windows are so much finer than ours are. They tend to use it for a week. They will be using most of the main airfield, and particularly this left-hand, what I've marked out as a no-fly zone. Their hangar will be this one here, and viewing area, and mostly they will be sort of circulating this triangle, which is the largest space that they use. I'll come back to that. Let's talk about the area. This is our campsite. The NAFI Cafe, who are our hosts, are this blue building here, and that top north corner of it is the cafe itself, and then the rest of it is the museum. You can see the aircraft on the aprons there. I'm sure they'll be happy for you to go and see around the museum if we have off days. When you're arriving, this B2050 road that comes out of Ramsgate in the east and the main road down here, you'll come off this little intersection if you're coming from the west, go past this gate. The museum quite often use this gate for a car parking area, which you can see there. Ignore that, we will have it clearly signposted. But your entryway to the competition will be this roadway here. And this gate is actually a double width road, 2-lane road. You can turn in there and go up this road here. This blue space here is visitor parking. So not you guys who are arriving to set up your tents, but if you have friends and family coming and you're advising them for day visitors, they will turn off left here and park somewhere up this strip. That will be directed. When you arrive, you will carry on back up this road, turn right around here, and in white there will be our marquee. And we've got a much larger marquee this year. What was it, Andy? 1821 we've gone for in the end?
18 by 12, I think it is.
18 by 12, okay, not so big. But
3
still
times
quite
the size of last year's.
Yeah, 3 times the area of last year's. We're going to be operating a wristband system for access, because with this size of competition we have to be very careful, particularly that this is quite a public space and there will be public visitors. So broadly speaking, anything within this white outline is public. So people without wristbands can be in that. The purple area will be where the trade show sponsors that want to have stands visible to the public will be set up in. They will be able to come into our marquees, see our graphics, see our scoreboards. That's where we'll do the briefings. But when you arrive, we will have a gap. This is a fence, and there's some other stuff going on in this apron here that's not shown, but there will be a sort of 2-car width gap between the marquee and this corner, and that will be your entry. It will be marshal monitored, and anything beyond that will be campers, cars only, and people wearing wristbands. And you will have pilots will have an orange wristband that says BOPC on it. Marshals will have a blue one. The human powered aircraft will have some different color ones, but essentially they're using the same campsite as us as well. If you see anybody in that campsite who does not have a wristband of some sort, they shouldn't be there. Yeah. So and there'll be an exit out from here. Orange is campsite, and this is sort of 20 meters across there. So we've got we'll adjust a little bit, of course, when we get there, but it's going to be at least 2, if not 3, parallel rows of tents stacking up along here. This keeps us away from the main road for security reasons. This is a proper sort of Harris fence along here as a backing, so that's fairly secure, and we've got simple roadways in and out, up and down for traffic. The green zone here is a separation zone, so we will have fencing up the length of this, and that particularly then goes to, in fact, we have a different wristband for campers as well, who are guest campers, are paid for camping but aren't pilots. They can stay in the campsite, but then there's another level of wristband access over this yellow line into airside, which is only marshals and pilots. The separation zone, we will have it may be here, it may be a little bit further up, again we'll judge, but there'll be an entryway and an exit way for pilots going through a tent with their machines that they will be signed into and out of the deck, and the marshals will be running a system by which they check in with you, or when you go on deck, your name goes on a board and you're ticked off as being on deck. When you're back, you're ticked off as being in again. If we have a mismatch at the end of the day, then we know to start looking around at the traces and work out where a missing pilot might be. There will also be a very specifically designated refueling zone somewhere in the in this separation zone. All fueling, please, to be done there. This is for obvious safety reasons. Fueling up paramotors in the back of a hot tent, it's not a clever idea. But also for protection of the grass, not pouring fuel in too many more areas and killing grass for our hosts, all of these things. We will be very grateful to you to observe that for the little bit of hassle it is to lug a fuel can down the road and do it in a particular zone. Our scoring office, an organisation office, will be this purple one, which is accessed through this gate here. We will work out some means of sort of calling us, or we'll do it on text, but generally there'll be no pilots past this gate here. And then the toilet block will be somewhere on this apron here. It's represented in orange. Again, when it arrives, we'll be shuffling a little bit, but it'll be the main toilet and shower block will be right here. And then we have.
Sorry, when you say right here, I can't see your cursor. Maybe it's only me.
The orange block, this big orange square in the middle. Can you see that one?
Yeah, sure.
I'm just drawing another square around it. It'll be somewhere in this space because we have the water feed from this end. The other thing to point out is that this cyan block outline, this is at the moment an empty grassy field, but on the Saturday morning there is a car boot sale using that field, which is quite big. They will also come in and use the guest parking there, but there will be from the other entrance in the morning lots of cars coming up, parking along this road and opening their back doors and selling stuff. So Saturday morning will be very busy, with probably quite a lot of random public coming into our trade show area, looking out from the spectator area onto the deck. It's a great promotional opportunity, but also be very aware that that is a no-fly zone straight over them, because there will be a big concentration of people sitting there. I'll turn that no-fly zone back on. Not actually extended that no-fly zone there for a different reason, but anywhere over there will be out of bounds. Right, our deck is this entire field here. Primary deck is the bold yellow, and to give you an idea of scale, that is, when my Google Earth decides to work, 250 meters by 250 meters.
Sorry, I have to ask a stupid question again. Can somebody see the Google map at the moment? Because I'm only seeing this static picture with your sidebar here. Are you maybe sharing the wrong screen? Sorry.
No problem. Thank you for raising. I can see.
I can see it. We can see it.
Everyone else can see it. Okay.
Try double tapping on the picture. That sometimes expands it.
I can see everything fine. I can see all the animations and the moving cursors.
Okay, good. Okay. Cool. Got a hand up.
Yeah. Can I just ask, it was just backtracking to fuel, Barney, if you don't mind. Is there the opportunity to purchase fuel while you're there? Or do you have to drive off to the garage and things, or just bring enough fuel for the whole competition?
We are not providing the opportunity to purchase fuel on site. So yes, you will need to either bring enough or drive to the garage. There is a Shell and a BP somewhere around here.
I think they're about 4 miles
within
away,
about
Barney.
Yeah. They're very, very close. Out east this is Ramsgate to the east of us. So they're not far away. But no, we don't have the facility to provide fuel. To list as an extension of that deck, if I list the full length of that field, when my computer wakes up and decides to behave itself. I'm sure you're all looking at it on Google Earth right now as well. That field is nearly 800 meters long, and we have access to all of it. So we are not short on space. We are less short on space than we have ever been before, without even using the main part of Manston Airfield. We can expand into this as necessary. We will, to some extent, be experimenting with the number of pilots when we start off as to how that actually looks when you're stacked up on the airfield. The marshals have some quite detailed plans about how they're going to regulate that, but we can expand upwards into that, and we will of course be using part of it for landings as well when we do precision tasks. So we will brief them as and when we brief those tasks, and we'll give more details on the first briefing on the first night as to how that will work with takeoffs. But in general principle, when we're doing precision tasks, the crowd pleasing bit is the landing, and so that will be down here in front of the marquee, and the takeoffs for that will be more likely to be asking you to walk a little bit further up the field, and pilots will then take off, and we have this field here planned as the circuit pattern. So in order to minimize impact on local residents on precision tasks, the pilots, the marshals will be running a very strict takeoff order, and there will be essentially 3 pilots in the air at any time, 1 on climb out, 1 circuiting ready to go in, and 1 on approach. And depending on whatever the wind direction is, which we will brief before the task, we will have a takeoff order. Let's say it's westerly, you'll be up here somewhere, you'll take off that way, climb out, circuit, and then come back in towards your approach. But we will brief the specifics of that when we know the wind, because there's no point going through every possible permutation of wind direction at this stage. For your purposes, remember that this field to the north is your holding pattern for precision tasks. For the rest of the competition, for navigation, you're heading off out this way, and we're going to have 2 corridors. We need to be very aware that, again, local residents, but there are also 3 other key airspace users based in this building here. This building here, and using the bottom end of this area are one of our sponsors, Polar Helicopters, who do a mixture of sort of short tourist rides and a little bit of training. They've been brilliant at accommodating us. They're really excited to have us. They're offering shortish tourist helicopter rides for about 50 quid a pop. I have a flyer that I will circulate, and they will be advertising at the event. But if you have friends and family around who'd like to go for a little tour of East Kent in a helicopter, they would be delighted to provide it. But that's also one of the reasons we've blocked off this western space, so that they know we will be in very close communication with them, and if their movements are likely to affect us, we can pause takeoffs on the deck, but their in and out path will be over this sort of western triangle, so they're not likely to come across us until our pilots are well clear. The other one is this building here, who are another helicopter company called Helix, who do maintenance and repair and a bit of sales. And they are less predictable when they fly, if at all, but when they take off, they do it from this sort of end here, and we'll go eastwards. So we've created 2 corridors for navigation flying. We will brief specifically on any particular day when we see the wind direction, which of those is the in and which of those is the out corridor. Probably, given the prevailing wind being southwest, we will have this straight south corridor across the airfield. You'll take off southwesterly, you won't need to cross the campsite, and you'll go straight down over the airfield, and your start point with regards to timings of the competition tasks will be crossing this road here where I've marked this cyan line. I've used visual markers for the reference points on these no-fly zones, so the entrance to this road, which is one of the entrance ways into the airport industrial estate, that corner, essentially, if you use that road, but I've plotted the line from there to this roundabout as your eastern boundary of that corridor. The western boundary of that corridor is the line following this longer apron here up to this apron here. And yes, technically this no-fly zone does extend out over the end here, but for your purposes of corridor, map that line. If you go over the middle of this big concrete apron, the human-powered aircraft are not likely to be there, and you can go straight out and then get on with your navigation into Kent. I will ask you please to make sure that you are at 500 foot minimum altitude before you hit this sort of central concrete apron, so that if there are any human-powered aircraft extending this way, if you have an engine out at that point, also that you bail eastwards. So your bail route if you're going out on this southern route goes out east here and uses this field over here to land in, so that you don't come down on top of a very fragile human-powered aircraft plane that has wings made of foam and tissue paper mostly, and wouldn't react well to it. We had a question there from Carlos about minimum height, I think. Minimum flight altitude is 500 feet. Maximum is the airspace restrictions in the area of Kent that you're in, which for most of Kent is unlimited. There is a small space to the western end, which becomes 3,500 feet, which I'll show you. So return corridor then, you can see that with 70 pilots, if that was the in and the out corridor, that could become problematic. So your return corridor will be to come to the north side of this. And again, I will use for the timing what is a very clear visual reference, this straight road from the corner of that no-fly zone until the point that it kinks at the top. Anywhere that you cross that stops your timer as far as the navigation timings are concerned, and then you can make your way back in and line yourself up for a safe landing. Plenty of space to do so, plenty of time to do it in at that point, so nobody's rushing to get on the ground underneath somebody to try and hit their timing goal or anything like that. The reason this red no-fly zone on the west here is extended up through this bit is partly local residents here, but partly this square space of lots of industrial looking buildings is some kind of illegal immigrant detainee camp of some sort. So we have been asked not to fly over it and tasked with the proposed that they would be quite concerned about security things if we did so. Any questions on airfield layout? Protocols.
There's a few on the chat, Barney.
Any more? What's the distance between takeoff deck and Cyan Gate? Yes, it's about 1.3 kilometers. Somebody's measured that, so I can do that again. Let's say a real bottom end of this takeoff deck down to there. Yeah, 1.47 kilometers. But to the point at which I would expect you to be at 500 feet altitude is from here down to this apron. So you're talking 600 meters. That's from the start of that orange line, but if you need more than that to climb, you can climb out, set up further back. You can always go northwards and climb circuits to the north of the airfield, then come back in high. But there is a big safety issue. If you come over this airfield too low and you have an engine out and there are human-powered aircraft underneath you, they fly no higher than about 40 feet. So long as we've got a bit of height, we've got plenty of space to bail away from them. Will we get the KML with the NFZs? Yes, I will give you the KMLs and distribute them, and I will do that quite soon this weekend, so you have a bit of time to get them out. quite a climb out for an eco task on a small engine. Yes, but I may relax that on eco tasks, particularly because I'm likely to be sending you up on an eco task in conditions in which the human powered aircraft will not be flying in the middle of the day. So climbing over the yellow highlighter, but you can also be climbing here. I just want you to be at about 500 feet if the human powered aircraft are flying before you hit this paved area of the runway. Any more questions I've missed?
Sorry, Barney, is it the paved area of the runway or the apron where we need to be 500 feet?
It's, let me draw around it. I think it's anywhere in this zone, anywhere that's got concrete on it like this. Not this first little apron, but this space. They may, depending on wind, drift, whatever else, it's possible that they will be operating in this area. So I want you 500 feet by the time you're over them. I would say that these are local safety rules. These are not rules that would give any pilot an advantage in a task to in the navigation task to ignore by crossing over a no-fly zone. If you go across the middle of that, then you won't score your timing gate, so you will inevitably penalise yourself anyway. If you nudge out and your trace nudges over the edge of this by 10 meters, certainly I could see that if there was another pilot nearby you from the trace, I could see that that was a safety avoidance or a drift, and I would not be penalising your task scores for the day on that. These are general principles of seeing that everybody's keeping clear of each other for good safety reasons. Out on the rest of the deck, I will penalise much more heavily any impingement on no-fly zones, because that will be people deliberately cutting them too short to cut round a corner to save themselves time and get somewhere quicker. Yeah. And likewise height. I'm not going to be able to go through 70 pilots and check that you were all at 500 feet by that point there. I expect you to be so, and if I hear complaints, I will check and make a judgment. Any more questions? All heights, AGL, yes, above ground level.
All right, cheers.
Right, I'm going to move now to a different map.
Just a real quick one, Barney, for I don't think it'll be so much of a problem with something on fine, but just in that area, it's big enough that you could actually conduct an orbit. But what is the separation between pilots? So if there's a pilot being launched directly behind you, then if you start an orbit to get the height,
there will be, I mean, takeoffs will be quite rapid when we've got this many pilots on the deck. So if you think you need to orbit to get the height to get there, I suggest you start further up the deck. And we will be pushing pilots. I know you don't like walking with your machines on your back, but really, in general principle, this bold yellow will be more like a landing area and a run out, and we will be launching pilots from further up this field, and the takeoff decks will be more like the lower end of this lighter shaded area. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, makes sense.
Such that if you have enough, if you think you need to do an orbit and climb out, you can do it off to the left here and approach, have a bit more space.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Your maps. Don't get too excited. These are not the precision routes that you're going to be given. The four is going to be now 4 A3 sheets, and the big bold blue outlines are the A3 outlines that you're going to be given. So it simplifies up some of your origami. And to give you a little bit of an overview of how I do these maps, I mark my no-fly zones in red with a bolder outline, but I leave it translucent on the way through. The turn points, by the way, stop screenshotting Daniel Jones, because I've also moved them. They are the turn point pack. I have manipulated them and shuffled them around for the purposes of this demonstration. So we have no-fly zones that you can see through, so you can obviously reference the features that are underneath, so you can see where the road goes or whatever you're using to navigate. I will have bold. These bold lines will not be as bold when they're given to you in the map. They will be infinitely lighter. Where's my stroke? They will be more like that thickness on the map, just enough that you can trace them, and then you can trace them with your own highlighters or whatever you like to do in terms of your mapping. I bold them up for the purposes of these demos because it makes it much easier for you to see.
Only one question.
Yeah.
On the screen you share right now, there is this red circle. What does it mean?
Yeah, so these ones are advisory danger areas. You can see that says landing strip under there. That is a microlight strip, and if I turn the layer off, so these are things from, this is the CAA map, and these are the purple circles that indicate microlight or farm airstrips. They're not illegal to fly through, and it would be superfluous to make them all, designate them all as official no-fly zones, but I have marked them as indicative areas to keep out, because there may potentially be other other aircraft taking off around there. But you are perfectly welcome to fly through them with no penalty. We will have 110 turn points marked out. You're seeing them in green, but that's again for, I will print this map and put it on the wall of the marquee so you can see it and you can find them, all the green ones, but the ones that you get will have clear.
Barney, I've got a quick observation.
Yeah.
You seem to have a red circle around Waldershire, which used to be a gliding club, which is no longer. I don't know if you're aware of that.
I didn't know it was no longer. It's still marked on the CAA map.
Yeah, it was shut at Christmas. So.
Okay, so I'm using last year's CAA map that hasn't been updated yet. That one.
Yeah.
I'm very happy to move that if it's definitely no longer active.
No, it's been ploughed up. The field's been ploughed, so
okay.
it's no longer active.
Brilliant.
I just thought I'd mention that.
Well, I can tell you now then that that one is gone.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
That's okay.
So the turn points that you see on your maps printed will be like that. They are the 500 meter diameter, which is correct to the scale of the map. You can see that's half a square there, and to the scoring. They're quite big because the philosophy of this format is not about you missing so much the particular feature, but about the decisions that you make in whether you take a longer route one way or the other to pick up different ones. These purple dotted lines represent 20 and 40 kilometers away from the airfield. So this first one is 20 kilometers. For your reference, this one out here is 40 kilometers. And they are so designated because the turn points carry different values in the different zones. Turn points inside 20 kilometers have a 1 point rating, turn points between 20 and 40 are 2 points, and turn points outside of 40, there will be a few more in this space here, will carry 3 points in their weighting. And I will actually double ring them as well I should pull up an old map. I haven't quite got around to doing it yet on these, but for your reference, when you're flying, the ring around these will look more like that. And then there'll be a triple ring around. Can you all see that? Be more like that. And then there will be a triple ring around ones on the outside. So you have an immediate visual reference on your map what the point weighting is. A few other points to note on this. Don't try and shortcut across Hythe Bay here, because you may find yourself being shot at by a large number of military men with guns who sit on the edge here and fire out that way. Down here is Lydd Airport. It's off your map anyway, but that's what this circuit pattern is taken from the CAA map. So that's the circuit waiting for Lydd. So it is quite a busy airport, Lydd, actually. It's a private airfield, GA, that has quite a lot of activity. So if you are in this space here, just be aware there may well be some larger aircraft using that circuit. This larger no-fly zone here is Headcorn, which is a smaller airfield in the middle. You can see that. But this weekend they have the weekend of our competition, they have a Battle of Britain memorial fly-in event thing, which will involve quite a lot of aircraft. It is NOTAM'd. Battle of Britain aircraft landing. Basically, they're very local. They're based at the airfield. They have holding patterns that are wider though. So this ring is to cover their holding patterns, which they will be using on both Friday and Saturday. And to avoid confusion, I've just put the larger no-fly zone around all of it and keep us away from it. We're in communication with them. They're aware of our NOTAM. We're aware of theirs. It's not an issue because they're very local. The other thing we should be aware of, and I was really hoping to ask them to divert over us, but they have politely refused. On Sunday morning, just about the time that we'll be having our prize giving ceremony and final photos, they have the red arrows blasting through over them. I don't think they're going to come as far as us on their transit. I did ask them if they would like to divert 30 miles east and do a transit over us, but they politely declined, unfortunately. But we are unlikely to be flying on Sunday morning anyway. Point raised though, if for some reason we are, because weather has been bad during the week and we need flight Sunday morning, then we need to also get in touch with them and make sure exactly what they're transiting. Right, am I missing any questions? I can see Dan's questions. Short tasks. Please don't make long tasks so boring. Okay, we'll come to that. Right. Tasks will be about 30 to 50 kilometers in length. The precision tasks, but you will have larger windows in which to do several of them. So I'm going to start with the principle, and I'm not going to read through every aspect of our task catalogue because that has been published quite extensively. But in principle, on a day when we have free flying all day, let's assume for now I'm not going to do anything else like economy tasks. I might say it's a wonderful day and you have a window open from 0700 and a window that closes at 1800. Essentially all day flying, and you may fly for a maximum of 5 hours during that time. And that 5 hours is from crossing your start line here to crossing your finish line here. Yeah. So it might be 5 hours and 10 minutes by the time you've factored in your takeoff and approach things. But nobody's going to fly for 5 hours on one tank on this kind of navigation. So realistically, most people will do one long flight in the morning, choose when they go off in the afternoon and do another one. And within that, you may choose any of these precision tasks that you want to do. So you will have different tasks. They will be labeled as the different task type, either just a pure snake navigation, a pre-declared task, or a constant speed task. If you're doing a pre-declared one, we need to have your declaration before you leave the airfield. Or you have the turn point task. I'm going to switch this back to the Ordnance Survey map. It's easy to understand. In which you can pick up turn point hunt tasks, and that is live throughout as well. So your route might be to come out here, go and pick up. Please ignore the fact that some of these turn points are overlaid to the precision routes. I've muddled these around quite quickly for the demo. But you might pick up some turn points on the way, then drop into this task here, do that, pick up a couple more turn points, come back over the finish line, timer stops, have lunch, have a nap. You've clocked up 2 hours and 20 minutes flying. You then take off again in the afternoon, go back out, pick up this one here, do this one, pick up some more turn points, head back out and be back in so long as you've crossed this finish line by the 6 p.m. window close time that I set. David, hand up.
Yeah, okay. So with that, so if we wanted to go out, fly out to the west, far west, I assume there's going to be a fuel depot out there because we're a long way from base. When we land at the fuel depot, does our clock stop? Or have we basically just got to refuel, get back in the air?
Yes, if we have fuel depots, and I will tell you now that I don't have any sites confirmed availability for that yet. If anybody does have any sites locally that are prepared for them, please let me know. I would like to have some if possible, and that would change it. Yes, the other thing that you could do that day is spend 2.5 hours flying out here, stop at a fuel depot. I would stop the clock. On that one, I would judge just from the GPS trace of wheels down in terms of timing. Depending on the site, I may set up a gate line as well on that. I'd prefer to do that if I can because it makes it easier. And then you could fly home again in the evening. Yes, but as it stands at the moment, I've been unable to confirm the use of any fuel depots. So in which case it would be out and return.
Is there a fuel limit in the UK?
Sorry, can I finish off with David? Had another follow-up point there, and then I'll come to it.
Yeah. So sorry, I was just assuming. Just again, with the British weather the way it is at the moment. You might get 2.5 hours in. Might have to wheels down by about 10 o'clock. Sit on the ground till 3 till it starts becoming less bouncy, and then back up again for your final 2.5.
Yeah, exactly. But I will set those if I think the weather conditions are not going to be conducive to flying that many hours. I will say you only have 3 hours, or the window is actually only open for the morning. So that's my decision making. But I take that very seriously on not pushing pilots to flying in a weather window that I think is inappropriate to flying.
That's cool.
I qualify that statement with the fact that from a legal and ultimate safety perspective, it is always the pilot's ultimate decision whether they fly or not in the weather conditions, not mine. But I do my best to make sure, of course, that I don't give you any incentive to choose to do so in conditions that would be not fun or dangerous.
Sure.
Sorry, there was another question then from someone.
Yeah, sorry for interrupting. Is there a fuel limit, a maximum fuel amount you can take off with you when you are starting in the UK? There is in some countries, and other countries it isn't.
Yes, good point. Where is the law on that one?
Basically, you need to ensure that your whole aircraft, not including pilot, doesn't exceed 75 kilos.
That's the one. Yes, thank you.
That includes fuel, because usually, at least over here, it's the dry aircraft without energy, so without fuel.
No, that is wet, including fuel. So it's that weight that will sort of, if you've got a really heavy machine, you've got to be below 75 kilos.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Unless if you are a foreign pilot, you can apply for an exemption if you are legal, I believe, in your country.
It's 120 over
quick
here,
question.
and it's dry weight.
Can we please specify that that's only standard tanks and not external tanks?
Well, the weight is not, it's by weight, so it doesn't matter what tank you're holding the fuel in.
So I can come with a bladder tank as well?
So long as your weight is legal, yes.
Okay, spot on.
That's not
get one of them ordered.
No, that's not in the rules, Barney. If you start messing with your fuel system, that goes against what's in the rule book.
Yes,
Clicks right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, apologies. I mean that so long as the
no
tank, if you're running a system with a pre-existing set of tanks in whatever configuration that the manufacturer has approved, that's fine, and so long as your fuel does not come and your takeoff weight is 75. But yes, there is a very strict rule about not having DIY modifications to specifically comp bottles, extra tanks, header tanks. They are an absolute disaster waiting to happen if people fiddle around who are not necessarily mechanically minded or experienced in what they're doing. Suspending a litre or more of fuel next to your head in a cheap, flimsy bottle with dodgy fittings is just a very silly idea. And I've seen some nasty things that resulted from that in previous competitions. So the rule with additional tanks is that if they are manufacturer certified by the maker of the paramotor, that is acceptable. But I do not want home DIY modifications to fuel system tanks. Where was I? Takeoff. So general task window on any given flying day. The beauty, this is the entire beauty of this type of competition format. In a traditional competition, all 70 of you would be told to take off and go and fly this one route. So the poor people living underneath it are going to get 70 people over their heads, and you'd be given a 1 hour window for takeoff. And it's completely meaningless anyway then as a task, because everybody's following the person in front and nobody gets lost. You make a decision as a pilot, looking at the weather conditions, that you will be more efficient or effective at navigating this task over that task this day and getting the best efficiency for your time and your range and everything else. And then supplementing that by bonus points if you have judged it well and you have enough left in the tank all the time to pick up a few more turn points on your way home to the airfield. And then more strategically over the course of the 3 days that you have flying to think about which directions you might go based on the best understanding you have of the wind forecast for the next few days. I'm sorry if the screen lagging is slow. I guess I am sharing quite a big screen, high def screen. There's a lot on it. Okay, so as I've shown you here, there are 6 precision routes visible on this map. That is what there are going to be initially. But for the Discovery Challenge, there will be 3 of them. The first 3 will be on this one northeast map, and that is the map that you will be using. So Discovery pilots are only on this map. You can use any of the turn points that are on the one map that you are given and any of the 3 navigation routes. But we are aware that we have some new pilots here who are not used to navigating with maps in this way. And we need to limit it in some way. And we also want to not push you too far in terms of range, airtime, etc. So there will be 3 precision routes on this map of similar sort of lengths or shapes to the ones that you're looking there. and a number of turn points, some of which will have a higher point value because they'll be outside of the 20-kilometre space. They will also be open to the Open Championship pilots as well. They will be sort of the more local routes for them. There will be initially 3 more precision routes spread across the further sheets, and these will be slightly longer for the Open Championship classes. Last year I had 9 precision routes in total. Nobody did all 9. I think we had one person did 7. I'm doing this deliberately to concentrate more pilots on the same routes so that we have a more meaningful competition of more people doing all of them. But if any one pilot completes all 6 routes, I will re-release maps, another set of maps to all pilots with some more routes on them. So there will be more available if and when any one person has completed all of the ones that are available.
Barney, just on that, if say that pilot completes all 6 routes, but they've then only got, say, an hour left of flying time left of the whole competition, but other people, say, have like 4 to 5 hours because they haven't taken off yet, surely that's that might possibly be an unfair advantage on other pilots because they then get to choose.
No, fair point. It wouldn't be kind of at that minute in the middle of the window, suddenly they're all given out and some people could go and do more. I would wait until the end of the flying window that day, and if there was still a flying window available the next day, it's new hours for everybody, and I would open them up for everybody.
Does that then potentially allow people to choose an easier route set if another set are released, rather than doing some of the harder routes which are on the original set?
I will, fair point, and a good point. I would still require everybody to have finished the pre-existing 6 before they start moving on to next ones.
Fantastic, thank you.
Yeah,
and so if
with that.
Sorry, when you do the last precision route in the morning, then you have to wait all day to get new maps in the evening to then do the other precision tasks on the next day.
If that is the time, let's say it's an all-day window and you finish the last precision route in the morning and there are more flying hours in the afternoon, I guess so. But the reality is I will know before the last morning who is there and who is likely to finish them, and I can make judgments accordingly. So I think there will be no sudden surprises here of somebody popping up saying, I've finished, give me a new map. The principle there is that I will fairly release new maps to pilots as and when they finish the pre-existing routes. But I don't anticipate there being time with the routes I set and the time that we have, and the fact that we have, if we think we have 3 flying days, of which I hope to use at least 2 of the afternoons for economy tasks, which makes it for the navigation probably 1 whole day and 2 mornings. I think it unlikely that anybody will complete all 6 navigation tasks anyway. Okay. Any more questions on these maps?
There's a couple of small areas there to watch out, which we need to add on to the map, bird sanctuaries and stuff. So I'll tell you after, Barney.
Okay, sorry, yeah, I thought this one is Reculver. That is a bird sanctuary. That's why that's there. If you know of any more, Simon, yes, please tell me. And any other local.
There's one near the Stour entrance, which is quite sensitive. There's seals and there's a bird sanctuary just there, but I'll point that out to you after.
Thank you. Please, yeah, send me it on a map and I will mark it in. So there may be a few other no-fly zones. This is one of the reasons I wanted to do this briefing now, because it gives me a chance to make those adjustments before we print the maps.
But
anybody else?
But I'll share the with the ballooning guys. So we have our essays printed all over the map. So I can share the essays for you. So they're sensitive areas.
Yeah.
That we use for ballooning. Yeah.
That would be very helpful. Please share and I will amend them.
Okay.
Thank you. No more questions on that? Stop minute. What time we're on? Hour and a half going already. I've moved on to maps. So that's overview of competition. I'm going to bring it back now to from the macro in terms of the way things will be run to a little bit more local. Back on the campsite, of course, we expect good behaviour, respectful behaviour. The marshals are there to keep you safe. They are not there to pick up litter behind you or clean up after you or in any way actually have to monitor your behaviour or admonish you for it. But they will do if necessary, and they have full authority to do so if they feel that people are not behaving in an appropriate way that could bring us into disrepute in some way. I hope that's all I need to say about that. I've mentioned sponsors, and we're very grateful to our competition sponsors. Just a little note, call it a polite request, I suppose. I'm aware that lots of pilots have personal sponsors, and that's fantastic. We want to encourage sponsors to sponsor individual pilots as well and welcome that. But we also, if we want to keep our competition sponsors, official sponsors coming back and helping us with the fees, which enable your competition fees to be as low as they are, please don't push the limits. It's not too nice for the lead sponsor of the official competition to see a pilot encampment that has so much commercial vomit all over it that it would appear that somebody else is actually the main sponsor of the competition. So please bear that in mind. We haven't previously published any specific guidelines on this, but we would say that in your own tents around your particular local bit of camp area, fine, stick up your wind blades. Please don't go too overboard. I would suggest a guideline of 1 wind blade or flag per sponsor per pilot, as it were. I know that some of you have tents with sponsor logos on them, and that is what it is. But please don't start invading the public spaces by sneaking your own private sponsor wind blades along the edge of the deck or the public marquee space, because that is the space that has been specifically paid for by our official competition sponsors. And if they think that somebody else is getting a freebie because the pilots have gone and stuck them in there, then they will simply not come back and give us money next year, and your competition entry fees will have to go up. So it's as simple as that. Enough said on that. Joe, question. Your hand was up, Joe? No? Okay. Competition timetable, that was another issue on my list. It's quite straightforward as it's been published. You are welcome to start arriving on site from the Tuesday. This is Tuesday the 27th. That gives us a little bit of breathing space before you arrive to make sure everything's set up. And you may fly Tuesday afternoon, Wednesday morning, Wednesday afternoon, but any flying is subject to an initial briefing from myself or one of the Marshall team and competition rules, in that you are carrying the tracker that we give you and you follow the same circuits. I'm not showing my screen anymore, am I? Let's come back. So what would be very, very damaging to the competition is if on Tuesday night we have 50 pilots who aren't officially doing competition tasks, but just taking straight off and buzzing around locally here and pissing off the neighbours and potentially causing air procs and issues with each other. So competition practice, we have to be aware that we have 70 pilots. Takeoffs will be regulated in the same way on practice days, and we will expect you to take off and fly off using the corridors that we have defined. Yeah. And we will publish which of those anti-clockwise or clockwise routes that day we want you to use. We have to be very, very careful. This is emphatically not a fun fly-in for people to go along, take off and bimble about wherever they want to. We want to offer you the chance to get there early and go flying if you want to, check your kit, scope out a little bit of the area, but we risk an awful lot in this competition and in coming back next year for other competitions if people misbehave and buzz around low on that field. That is not what competition practice days are about. Right. We then have timetable. Arrival on site. First briefing will be 9 p.m. on Wednesday. Quite late, hopefully, because what would normally have been the first 2 hours of it have just been we're doing this evening. So we've covered an awful lot. That will enable me to just give you some local updates, an overview of the weather, and the general plan we have for the competition, a bit more local ideas about how you go onto and off decks, how you line up with marshals, what their plans are for where they want you to be. For all you need to know at the moment in terms of marshalling, you will be on the deck, you will set yourself up roughly where you're directed to. There will be an element of choice. It's effectively a free takeoff, but there will be zones so that we can have particular zones controlled by particular flag marshals who know which group of pilots they're looking at, and they will be regulating that stack. And when it's your turn, you will have a marshal point at you with a green flag and you will go. You will not go until you have a green flag pointing straight at you. And it's very obvious that the marshals and the team of them who are working across the deck, making note of who else is taking off or ready to take off where and who else is coming in, they will keep you safe. We also, and I will reiterate this, it's in the rule book, but we take the whole principle of starting propellers very seriously. We have seen some nasty accidents. There is no running of propellers with engines on the ground, always on your back, always with helmets on, and we expect to hear a very clear shout of clear prop, audible from across the airfield, and not just yelling, but actively looking around over your shoulders, checking the space behind you before you fire up your propeller. Marshals will get very cross if they see that people are firing propellers without checking the space behind them. So takeoffs are effectively free in that we're not, in most cases, doing a timed or ordered takeoff. The only time we might impose an ordered takeoff is for precision tasks, and if conditions are changing, we would want the pilots who are in the most competition with each other to be flying the precision task in comparable conditions to each other. So that's when we might put a competition order on the takeoff. We also just don't know really, because we've never had this many pilots in the UK competition before, how long it will take us to get through precision tasks. So the first one we do will be an experiment. On the first night, that will be probably only the Open Championship class doing it, so we can get a sense of how it works. Others can watch or whatever, but again, we'll judge on conditions and announce on the day. So that will be 40 odd rather than the full 70. And we will maybe have to stagger takeoff windows as well. It might be that we say that Open Championship launches at 7, launch window for Discovery opens at 8, just so that we stack the field a little bit more by class. But again, there's no point overly briefing that now until we know what the conditions are. Thursday, all day competition flying, probably with precision tasks in the evening. Likewise Friday, likewise Saturday. on at least 2 of those days, given the conditions, I hope to spend the afternoon on a economy task. And that's a system that will brief on the first briefing on site, but effectively will be a procedure in which pilots need to empty their machines, run them dry, show it to the marshals, refuel their tanks under marshal control, put them into quarantine before takeoff.
Excuse me, Barney. Could you blow the spreadsheet up bigger, please? I know you've got about a 40-inch screen there, but for the for the people with the little laptops, that'd be great. Thank you.
Is that better?
Yeah, it is. Thank you.
The Icarus Championship generally will be flying even earlier than us. We are keeping it to 7 a.m. launch window for the sake of local neighbours. We shouldn't need that unless the conditions are really bad and we need the flying time. The human-powered aircraft will probably be starting off at first light, 4 or 5 a.m. But they make no noise. And then sleeping. In terms of viewing them, they are in a more secure side of the airfield. So we will be arranging, and this will be one of the, between there and our marshals, the access to their hangar will be here. And let me turn that, no fly zone off. There will be a gated control here into their hangar, but for, if you've got friends, family, public that want to see what's going on with the human-powered aircraft, there will be a viewing area here which we will open for a window every evening, probably 7 to 8 p.m. or something. The public can go and view them, but because of the security issues around the main airport site, we can't just have the gate open for anyone to go wandering over there and watching them as they please. Saturday, we have this car boot sale Saturday morning. At the same time, we plan to be doing our trade show. So for the sponsors that want to sort of have a more public exhibit, they can have a stand set up throughout, but that will be the main focus because we know there's lots of public around then. We'll be flying, we'll be having local precision tasks in the evening, and then we have a party on Saturday night. We have a number of birthdays to celebrate. We have a live band. We have the Jolly Farmers pub, who are a sponsor, providing some liquid refreshment, and we hope to have a lot of fun. On Sunday morning, we will be hosting the AGM of our British Paramotor Competitions panel. I will be circulating an agenda for that, but essentially it will be a brief update from each of our key members on our activity this year, and again plans for next year, and a chance for voting on proposals for changes to rules and things. But it's more of a report update and very brief discussion because we simply don't have the time to sit there and engage in lengthy discussions all day, and they can go on all day. We have known it. We then will have an awards ceremony which we will combine with the human-powered aircraft as well, which we plan at the moment to be for midday as advertised. We hope an hour to an hour and a half, after which those of you that need to get off to ferries and so on can be off.
I'll just add something, Barney.
Yeah.
Yeah, just while Barney's thinking, guys, at the AGM and the meeting, please do talk to all the committee members during the event or now, whenever you're free, with your ideas, your suggestions. With all the amount of pilots that come this year and stepping up the game, there's a huge amount of work that Barney and everyone's doing behind the scenes. And to continue on this journey, we really need a lot more people helping. It doesn't mean that you have to be a full-on committee member. You could be part of a working group. So please do come forward and offer your support to the AGM. Don't sit in your tents. The more you help us, the more we can help you.
Yeah, absolutely. We do need help. It's been a lot of work just getting this far with this many pilots, managing everybody. And apologies if we've been slow on updates on things like websites. We are all doing our best to fit this in around lives, jobs, children, and everything else. So we are doing our best for you, but the more help we can get, the better, and the easier it becomes, whether that's PR, social media, press officer, publicity, hardware, anything. That's a different conversation. Equipment, yeah. One point on safety of general flying, if you're out and about, again, it's in the rules, but I will reiterate it because it's a key safety issue. If you land out, the procedure, if you just land out and leave your wing out on the deck because you're knackered and you're a bit shaken and you stumble off to smoke a cigarette, have a pee in a bush and sit down and scratch your head for a bit, any pilot flying over you has to assume that you are in big trouble because you have not been able to ball up your wing, and they are obligated to land and provide assistance. Pilots doing that, we will ensure that they are not adversely affected in their scores for doing so. But if you are the pilot who has landed, please make sure that you ball your wing up within a minute or two of landing. I think the rules say 3 minutes or something like that. As soon as you can, so that any pilot flying over you in a similar area knows that you are safe and capable of moving. Yeah. Then get in touch with us. If you're not planning on flying home, you can open your mobile phone, you can call us and let us know that you're safe. If you want to, for whatever reason, you had a, I don't know, block. Thanks for muting me, someone. If you land out for some silly thing that you can fix and take off again, you're welcome to keep flying. There is, I think, a small penalty on your points for doing so, but you can fly back and carry on collecting points. So long as you do not, for the Open Championship classes, open up your mobile phone. We have a procedure in that case that you can, because we're carrying live trackers, walk in a large figure of 8 around the field that you've landed in, with holding your tracker, and then we will be able to see from the trace that you are perfectly capable of moving and assumed to be not in trouble, but we can see that you're on the ground. If you're on the ground and we have a static tracker and no communication, then we have to start calling emergency services quite rapidly, or sending people out to find you. So please bear that in mind. We will not be impressed, or neither will the ambulance, if they turn up at the field and find you sitting there smoking a cigarette and eating sweets in a bush, quite happy, with your wing all spread out across the ground. We will go through the procedure for phone sealing and forms. That's more of a process marshalling issue on the first night, but in essence, for pilots in the Open Championship class, when you go out on deck, any phones that have GPS capability need taking to the marshals, switching off in front of the phone marshal so they see that it goes off, and then putting in the bag and sealing. And the first thing that you do when you come back off the deck is unseal your phone in front of them. We will give you loggers. Each of you will have a live tracker, Flymaster live tracker logger, which we rent from Flymaster. It is one of these. You basically need to do nothing with it. There's a very simple procedure for turning it on, making sure that this bar here is the batteries. We will circulate the instruction manual.
It's your screen, Barney.
I'm not sharing. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
One of these.
One question: how to attach them to our gear? Is it enough to put them in any pocket or any carabiner?
They claim that they're fine to go in a pocket. The company we rent them from ask that you do not put too much tape over them and make them all sticky. But I can't police that too much, although I do get them back and when you give them in each time. But we're not taking them in to download tracks. We download the tracks remotely. The tracks will all be published on our website. Yeah. That's still got Benny up in Norfolk from last year on there. But so you can direct all of your teams of adoring groupies to this site to watch your icon bumbling around Kent. We are hoping, we've just finished the development on a live scoring capability on our scoring system. We have not yet had a chance to test it, so we're not making any promises, but we hope that in the main marquee at the event there will be a large screen with some kind of live tally and track for the turn point hunt element of the competition. So your more local groupies back in the tent and the campsite can be standing there watching the tally of pilots scoring turn points. But we can also, through the FlyMaster system, it does that by live downloading your track files. What you do need to be aware of is the charging. They have a specific charging system, and you will need to bring it back to us after each flight and make sure it goes back on the chargers, which will be in the main marquee. They have something like 72 hours battery life, so they don't need much, but also they're as given to us in a competition mode when you can't do anything much with them. But for our purposes, putting them back on the charger also switches them off, then on again, and breaks the track. So it makes it easier for us to work out what flight was which. And for if you want to do anything else with the tracks later on, like upload them to X contest and so on, then it's easier for you to use that split as well. Yes, you'll keep the tracker for the duration, but it needs to come back to us for we don't have enough chargers to give you each a tracker and a charger. There's a set of communal chargers that will be in the main marquee. Other points then, everybody will have a tracker, including the Discovery Challenge class. We will score from them as rapidly and efficiently as we can, and the scores will go up on an official notice board in the main marquee. It will be very obvious where that is, and we will point it out on the first day. There is for those that are not aware, a formal procedure for scoring, which is less relevant in this format because none of the scores are final until the last pilot has sealed it. But on the last day, when we close the competition, the final round of our scores will come out, and then there is a time period which will be printed on the score sheet that says complaints deadline X, an hour or two after the publication of the scores. It's shortened on the last day, and then a protest deadline, and that's a formal procedure that if you think we've made a mistake in our scores, we're obviously happy to rectify it, and the first port of call is come to us and just say, I think you've made a mistake, and we can check the track and we will rectify it. If you think we've made a mistake and we don't, you can put in a formal complaint and we can officially check that and respond. If you do not like our response, you can put in a formal protest, and that will then go to a jury who will judge based on the rules and the tracks as to whether you get that complaint, that protest upheld. I can't remember the last time we had a protest in this format of competition. It's very unlikely, but that is, and the procedure for that is in our rules somewhere. Pilot numbers. We will give you each two numbers, one of about 50 millimeters in diameter, which goes on your helmet on the front right hand side. Turn off my screen share so you can see me. So one on the front right hand side of your helmet. Another one will be 2 stickers of about 100 millimeters diameter, and they will go on the right hand side of your cage netting. Somewhere, I appreciate you don't want to stick them right out in the airflow, but neither do we want them so hidden away, tucked away in the depths under your elbow or under your reserve chute that nobody can see them. So they need to be clearly visible from a distance somewhere in about the middle right hand side of your cage. And I say right hand side because given the prevailing wind directions, you will likely be taking off down the field with most of the marshals to your right when they're sitting in the campsite and the spectators. Yeah. Another point I need to think about, and I haven't quite worked out how we're going to do it yet, but we have we want to explore, possibly with regards to future world championships, the idea of team flying. And I welcome input on this. I'm sort of saying it as an advisory. You're all obviously competing against each other, so it's a very hard one to test in a national championship. But in a world championship, there are team entries, and we're keen to explore how team flying might work in a context of this competition. So we might have informal teams for pilots that want to engage in that, but I haven't had time to discuss that in enough detail yet and work out how that might work. But have a think about if you would want to engage in that, and if so, who with. For the Discovery Challenge might be how we do that, because that's less critical in terms of championships and so on, and that might and actually is very conducive to helping each other and learning. Benny, you said, is it a tape that can be removed completely from the helmet? Can you put on the right ear protection cup like in last year's? It's a sticky label, pre-printed sticky label. It should peel off. I've not tried sticking it on helmets. I don't know how sticky the stick is. Yes, I will accept it on the ear protection cup, so as it can be viewed from the right hand side of your head. X contest. One of the tasks that I will allow all pilots to probably, and I will brief it one way or the other, but I have the option to allow all pilots to carry mobile phones, is the distance triangle, FAI triangle task. And one of the reasons I want to do that is it makes it a lot easier for pilots to register flights in the X contest. Those of you that are not familiar with it, this is a international competition. I've just put the link in the chat there, through which you can submit and upload tracks directly from various apps in your mobile phone, and there is a world ranking series. And I would like to use our championships to encourage more pilots to participate in it, more British pilots to get scores. You can see we have a national teams structure here. You may see some familiar names popping up when this loads.
You're not sharing, Barney.
I'm still not sharing. I'm still loading at the moment because the website's not working.
That's all well good then.
There we go. Oh, look, we've got Germany right up the top there on the national teams so far. And this is for this year so far, followed by France. Oh, look, where are we? We're languishing back down here. Get on with it, boys. Daniel's leading the way. Do we have Steve Jennis in the room? He said he was flying tonight. A few others. I'd like to put us on the map here, so that's part of it. So anyone interested, I can't force you to put your scores up onto that. You can also upload your Flymaster tracks after the event. We can give you the IGC files and you can upload them. So I encourage you to register for that in advance if you have not done so already.
Good to see your dad on there, Barney. I noticed.
Yeah, in last place, but he's coming fighting fit with a new bulldog to this competition, so he's keen to get more on it.
Brilliant.
Barney, just quickie on the status of the airfield. So for said groupies, friends, etc., that want to fly in light aircraft, will the actual the whole airstrip be shut down for light aircraft, or will they be able to PPR in?
Yes, I have been asked that a number of times, and the reason I have not responded on it yet is because I've been checking with the airfield, and I had a response back just today to confirm that the answer, I'm afraid, is no. And that's not from me, that's from the airfield themselves. They're concerned about the number of aircraft and just overcomplicating air traffic control levels, everything. I had said to them that in theory I was not that worried if people were flying before the event, stayed their aircraft ground during the event and then fly away afterwards.
Totally in fucking denial, isn't he?
Who's in fucking denial?
Somebody got
somebody who's not muted, I guess.
But yeah, Gary Blake from the company that owned the airfield have come back to me today at my request and said sorry, no. So
no, that's fine. I'll advise suitable pilots that if they want to attend, they'll have to drive down.
I can see the attraction. Not everyone gets a chance to fly into a historic airport like that and use it, so it's worth asking. But in this case, we have to say no.
Okay, no worries. I'll let them know.
Right, I think we're nearly done as far as stuff I want to cover tonight. We've done 2 hours. I think that's probably reaching limits for everybody. Does anyone have any more questions? I did the general bulk of the task catalogue. In fact, I will just point you to it as a few key points. In the training seminar, I went through most of it. So the video for that is on our website. I talked through a lot of the general principles of the local regulations, a lot of which I've also recovered today. In fact, that's not this one, that's for a World Championship event. Ignore that. Sorry, 1 second.
Couple of people hands up as well, Barney.
Okay, yeah. Who's first? Mike Fletcher.
Hi, Barney. Quick question. It's my first competition, so I don't know how this works overnight. Do the paramotors have to go into a quarantine of some sort?
No, you take them back to your tent. Your responsibility.
Is there a place to keep them if you're not staying on site?
Yes, we can arrange something. Obviously, at not necessarily accepting any responsibility for it, but there'll be more than enough people around with big tents that'll be happy to house it for you, I'm sure. I'd rather you arrange it informally through other pilots, and we can help you find buddies to do that, than we take official responsibility for it, because we would be putting it in a marquee that we're not going to leave somebody officially watching all night and sleeping in. But yes, you can certainly leave it. I'm sure somebody will volunteer to host your engine overnight. Rick, you're next.
At what point will you be announcing the end value of the tasks which require it to be announced? And will it be after people have confirmed what wings and stuff they'll be flying?
It can't really be until the first briefing, because that's when I've got the latest update on weather, and I have a much better sense of how much flying in what way we're likely to do. So you can change. I will give you a chance to change what wing you register, and essentially whatever you take off with on the first task is the one that you're registered with. Even if we haven't quite updated our systems yet, we'll hold you to that one. But I can't commit to putting those kind of values in absolutely until I know what the weather is and I've got a better simulation of how much flying in what way we're going to do.
So it'll be the Wednesday night briefing, but you could still change wings after that if you wanted to.
Yes.
Cool. Cheers.
Simon. Simon? No.
Sorry, can you just run through the emergency procedures? Should there be a helicopter coming in so people will know what we're doing with the tops and that?
Yes, good point. Right, we've set these up. We will be in communication with the helis who are here and the helis who are here. We hope that if they are taking off, we will be notified by them, so we can, if necessary, pause takeoffs. It's one of the reasons to have takeoffs actually through the airfield, because we can pause the takeoffs if we know they're about to take off more easily. If there is a accident on the field and a emergency heli coming in, we will have a large blue marker, a tarp blue, a yellow mark on blue, and I haven't quite worked out what the design of that will be yet. It was a red tarp on green last year, and it was quite rightly pointed out to us that for people who are colourblind, that's not exactly useful. So we will have a 4-metre classic blue tarp with a probably yellow cross spray painted on it, which is the best contrast you can see, which will be an indicator that there is a problem. Land as soon as you can, as safely as you can. Nobody at this point should be on task timing and in any hurry to get down, so there's no risk of going wide. It'll just be because most of you are not carrying radio or communication systems, a warning to be very aware that a emergency services heli might be coming in, and if they are, they will be planning on landing probably right in the middle of this yellow space here. So you would be that marker will be telling you to move yourselves right up to the far end of the field and put yourselves down there, but being aware there may be a heli coming in from whichever angle, we don't know. And that's the only reference we can really give you when you're in the air. There is a rule that says if you have a what we call a basic mobile phone that doesn't carry GPS, you are allowed to carry that, and you can register it with us, and we will send out a text message if we can as well. But we've found fewer and fewer people. In fact, I don't think anyone has registered such a phone with us for the last 2-3 years. But if you want to, we will do that. I had a question: can we carry airband radio? Not in Open Championship classes. If you're in the Discovery class, you can carry radio. Open Championship, no. Dan, your hand's up.
Yes, will we get a KML file of all the turn points prior to the event? We have done in the past.
You will, yes. Probably by this weekend, I hope.
Okay, thank you.
The declare task is now done digitally now, isn't it, Barney?
Yes, it will be. I will give that form out on the I'm still making tweaks to the form, but in principle, in the past, the declared speed task was you hand in a form before you take off, showing what time of arrival you anticipate at each of the turn points, and you give that to the marshals. That obviously carries some level of risk, in the sense that if it's put down on a table and it blows away before the marshal picks it up and they don't have a form and you go and fly it, it's problematic. So I'm going to trial this year a digital declaration sheet form. It'll be a link to a Google form and you would simply, before that day, put in your name, number, which declared task it is, and then the day and your time of arrival in seconds. Let's do it that way. That's the actual form. It carries the same level of risk that if the form doesn't upload for some reason and we don't get it, then you could fly the task and we don't have your numbers. So I would caveat this with, I would always take a whole bunch of screenshots of it and text them to me, or just store them in your phone, so that if for some reason we don't have the form, you've got evidence that you had it. I need to tweak it a bit, and I'll try and get it to send you an email confirmation of your answers as well, so that you have it. And you know, if you've got that email, then you know it's been submitted, and so on. But hopefully that should streamline things a little bit. So I will circulate that link to you as and when as well. But yes, thanks for that reminder as well. Can we continue to use EC devices? Yes, you may. EC devices don't help you to navigate. So yeah, so long as they don't have a screen that helps you to navigate. If you're in Open Championship class. Right. So I think it's getting a bit late for going through every bit of this. The point really is that you all have read it carefully, and this reiterates everything that I've said in a slightly different format today. We've got the specifics of the tasks. And I guess my point here is to send you away as another reminder to make sure you've read it very carefully, and our briefing on site will be the last chance then to ask. It won't be the last chance, it'll be another chance to then ask very specific questions about any misunderstandings you might have about these rules. I will then brief on that day as well specific rules for what I plan to do with precision tasks in terms of takeoff orders and arrangements around the field, because by that point you'll have got to the field and had a look at it, and you'll understand a bit more about the site and how it will work. That's another point I was going to make. Thank you all for engaging in the WhatsApp groups. That's been really effective. Again, I think so many questions have been asked there and answered, and that's super helpful. I am aware though that also things can get lost in the massive stuff in there. So during the competition, I'm intending to set up another group, but it will be an announcement group only. So one that you guys cannot respond on, and just so that if there is anything absolutely official coming from us, we will post it onto that as another means of a formal notice board. That will be supplementary to the official notice board in the marquee, which is the absolute authority. That will be where briefing times, our latest updates on weather and the latest scores will be. But as a means of rapidly sending information to you that you don't need to lose, we will have another WhatsApp group, because I think there are only 2 pilots registered who do not use WhatsApp, and I know who those 2 are, so I can double them with text messages. Any more questions?
Reserve shoots, Barney. We'll be checking for the reserve shoots.
We will be doing a scrutineering process. So when you do your registration, you will also be expected to bring your equipment to the marquee, and there will be a process of marshals having a look. It cannot be exhausted, of course, and it's still fundamentally the pilot decision to what they fly and how they conform to the rules. But if we see that you are not carrying a reserve chute, we will not let you fly. But it is you that certifies that that reserve chute is safe and serviced and not too out of date and old and everything else.
So may I ask a quick question, probably for the trike pilots, but sometimes it's a real pain with a trike if you lay your wing out and you strap yourself in and you're ready to go, and then the wind comes and curls your wing over or moves it around. Are other trike pilots or other pilots allowed to help redress your wing and things if that happens?
Yes. Pilots and marshals, who are all on the deck and therefore insured, may help as much as you like on the deck, with the permission of the wing owner, of course. And yes, if you need help resetting up to be able to get off, there is no like competitive limitation on you've all got to do it yourself and climb yourself back out of your straps and set up again. If you're happy for a marshal to pull your wing around and reset you up so you can go again, that is fine. But not for anyone who is not insured. So that, for British people, that means BHPA. Basically, if they're wearing a blue or an orange wristband, they can do it.
Thank you.
That was Sean then, wasn't it? Raffaele, do we need radio? Is there some tasks where we could have radio? The only task for Open Championship that I will allow radio is the, well, I need to think about that. I haven't specifically explicitly allowed radio on that, but the principle being of the eco triangle task. I've allowed mobile phones, so I can't see why I should not allow radio. People can communicate with each other. Fuel economy, FAI triangle. And the argument behind that was partly to allow people to submit their tracks more easily through their apps to the X contest. It was partly to allow people to listen to music, because that's although it is a challenging task, it's also quite long legs, and people like to sit and park themselves and listen to music and things on the way. The challenge in that task is knowing your fuel burn, making a very good decision on when you turn to get the most equilateral triangle with the amount of fuel you've been given. And it is challenging, but it also is around quite long legs, long straight legs, which can be quite boring. So that was the request for mobile phones, which I have allowed. I think I said if briefed, so I can decide one way or the other if I allow them on the day.
Barney, what is the allowance? Is it 1 litre, the allowance?
No, it will likely be a lot more than that. The allowance, the point of this format is much longer triangles. So the allowance on that day, assuming we have the right conditions, I will be looking at giving you the kind of allowance that might enable the best people to use a triangle that fills up the whole of that map space. Which I can tell you, you can fit a triangle of about 140 kilometers length into that.
Wow, okay.
So that is the kind of amount of fuel I will consider giving you. But it will then be the same for everybody, at least within any one class. Any more questions for tonight? You're probably all feeling a bit frazzled. I certainly am. By all means, go back over this, make notes of any more questions, ask them on the WhatsApp, and then we'll have another face-to-face on Wednesday. But we will see you all at some point before that. And if you want to fly before that, we'll have a much more shorter local briefing, but you have essentially all been given the key points of the local area now already, so that's the most important thing. Co-director Andy, have I missed anything that we need to cover tonight?
Nothing I can think of now. I think if anyone knows of pilots who haven't been able to join tonight, to encourage them to watch the replay. I don't know what the precise plan is for pilots who turn up who haven't attended the briefing, Barney.
Well, this is precisely why we have to have an on-site briefing, or at least know who's been in that. And if people have missed that, then we know who's briefed them. So there will be a few absolutely vital points that I will have to reiterate again on that Wednesday night for anyone that wasn't here. I have an attendance list at this one, so that's a good starting point. But as I know from teaching undergraduate students for the last few years, an attendance list signed into a Teams meeting does not necessarily mean they've been listening. What more can you do? Great. Well, let's wrap up. Sorry.
So it's just important we stay away from polar. That's because these helicopters they're expected not to go near them, and they will just go up thinking we are not going to be around.
We know they're there. They know we're there. We're all trying not to have any accidents, and it will be. They will also. They're aware of our trackers, so they know exactly where all of you will be if you're carrying your live tracker. Right, let's wrap it up then. Lovely to see you all. Lots of old faces I haven't seen in a long time, the new ones. Thank you for coming, and I look forward to.
Thanks very much, Barney.
Thank you very much, Barney.
Thank you, Barney.
Well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Barney.
Cheers.
Thanks, Barney.